Welcome, everyone, to San Bernardino Valley Presents Watershed Moments. As a regional water agency, we have the opportunity to work with agencies, organizations, leaders, and community members across the country. This is a podcast where we talk about the resource investments, innovation, and inspiration. This episode features Mark Bogh of Bogh Engineering. He's here to talk with me about our Enhanced Recharge project, a major piece of water infrastructure that will provide reliable and resilient water supply for the people of our region for generations to come. Mark Bogh, thank you for coming here and talking with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
We have just achieved something unbelievable, in my experience. We have constructed a major water infrastructure project ahead of schedule, on budget, in endangered species occupied habitat, 300 acres of earthwork that was for water recharge, 295 acres of earthwork that was for endangered species. That seems unbelievable in the state of California these days. What do you think?
In the state of California, that's true, but probably in our area, these things have been done before, perhaps, because this is an interesting place we live, right? And people try to get stuff done here. And I think that there's a couple of things that worked in our favor. Faith in each other, faith in our team, faith in the big idea of actually putting water in the ground so people could use it. Trust. Trust is such a lost art these days. Who am I and where did I come from? Let's talk about that for a second.
Let me start. So those are all things you don't normally hear from when you talk about water infrastructure. You're not talking about trust and faith and all of those things. So tell me, who are you? Where did you come from? Why do you think so differently than many of the people that we encounter in this job?
Yeah, one of my grandfathers, depending on which part of my family you ask, from either 5 generations back or 6 generations back, came to the San Bernardino Valley in 1850. And he was the first mayor of San Bernardino. And he built the first dam for Big Bear to collect water so that it could be used downstream. In the 40s, my grandfather, during World War II, my direct grandfather, started a construction company and built things all throughout the valley. And it was always a handshake, and it was always, yes, sir, I'll get it done. And he's long since gone, but I was fortunate enough to go to the University of Redlands, grew up in San Bernardino, and went to the University of Redlands and got a mechanical engineering degree by the skin of my teeth.
No, to all students out there, you don't have to be an A+ student. Just get the degree.
Just keep going. Turn in your homework.
Yes.
Keep going. That's for sure. That degree got me a brief stint with San Bernardino County, and by brief I mean 6 months. And after that, I went to work for a engineering firm in Orange County, and I ended up being the engineer of record for Universal Studios for City Walk and Jurassic Park and Terminator 2, and on. Every single attraction and every single facility I was involved in. When you watch The Voice and they say, this is The Voice, and they show that picture of the soundstage, that's my soundstage, and the camera is sitting on my parking structure. So I got a lot of interesting experience in we have to have this done in 2 months kind of fashion. Was kind of always the theme. And we sold that company, and I went and begged my dad for a job in 1998, and he said no. And he retired in 2008, and I ran that company from 98 to about, a year ago. This project was kind of my last official project. I'm now kind of part-time. But in the process, I learned a lot of things on what you can do right and what you can do wrong. And the idea that if you can find a collection of people to be on your team that don't say no, they say, how might that work? Well, then you can really get things done pretty fast. And so our company's built like that. And it turns out that your organization is very similar to that. That's my elevator speech I give when I feel like telling people what I do. So, um,
So, what I heard was that you come from a background of problem solving, time matters, relationships matter. And that's not something that I think is always present in the work that we do. And so, one thing that I find is so important for me is that I try to live my values every single day. So, what are your values?
yeah, our construction and engineering company does not hire and fire people. The people that worked on this project with us together, the average person has been there for 25 years. A couple of years ago, three now, in July, I gave them the company because I want them to be, I mean, they're the American dream kind of people. And so if you expand that thought process into uh, building schools or building water facilities or whatever, the point is to help people. And so I'm really interested in helping people, right? Um, the construction business, if you say it like that, is does not have that sort of an opinion. They think I'm out to get them, and I think they're out to get me. That sort of relationship, and so then you end up with all kinds of systems to try and counteract that, which really don't work. Those systems don't work. As soon as you create a system, the people that are going to abuse the system are going to abuse that new system. And so, if you can find an organization that and create an environment, a culture, right, that doesn't have that I'm out to get you and you're out to get me, uh, then things go smoother, right? At the end of the day, the contractor's going to make us money, right? And so you might as well just work together so that they make their money because that's what they're in business to do, and that you get the facilities you need. If that makes sense. I mean, elementary schools, we do a lot of school work. In elementary schools, they take 2 years to build. And my dad and I have built schools from the ground up in 9 months
Mhm.
and no changeovers.
Yeah.
And putting the kids in their seats so that they can learn how to read, right?
So, this project, like the people listening probably have never heard a contractor talk like you about just kind of the mindset. So let's just talk about the project so they can get the overview of what happened that was so extraordinary over the last 18 to 24 months. So we put out our bid documents, and we have for a 600-acre project. Like I said, 300 acres of new recharge basins that take water out of the Santa Ana River and put it into our groundwater aquifer for future use. And then about 300 acres of endangered species habitat in between these basins. We had been working on this project for decades. We, San Bernardino Valley's staff, for decades. And we were finally getting to the place where, okay, we really need to get this built. We have the permits. We've secured the funding. We put it out for bid. An engineer's estimate is out there, and your bid comes in about $20 million less than our engineer's estimate. And I'll remember when our engineers told me, they said, "Oh my gosh, you're never going to believe this bid." I thought for sure they were going to say $20 million more. And I was like, "Oh man, don't tell me. I don't want to know." And they said $20 million less than our engineer's estimate. And I remember saying, "That can't be right. You guys need to look into that. That sounds too good to be true." But we actually were able to build this project on budget. We didn't have any change orders on this project. We had some owner enhancements that we made when we saw opportunities, but we came in at that $51 million contract for the recharge basins and ahead of schedule. To me, that is extraordinary. And I work all over this state, and all I ever hear, in fact, I had someone yell out from the audience and I was speaking at an event one time and said, "All I ever hear is you talking about getting stuff done, Heather. We want to see it. We want to see something get built." And I remember thinking like, "Oh, wow, this is really uncomfortable." Um, and here I am. I'll hopefully go back to that conference someday and say like, "Look, we actually did build the projects, and we did it based on trust and collaboration and teamwork. And um, so it's just so unusual that people have just come to expect that it is impossible. And there has been this, I think, level of like kind of cynicism that has crept into our work, especially in the public sector. And so, well, first I got to ask you, what was your, don't give away any of your secrets. I want you to get future jobs and all, but like, what was your mindset and how were you thinking when you prepared that bid that was so different than all the other bids? I think the next lowest bid was about $9 million more than yours. So clearly you guys took a different approach than most of the other entities that bid. Like, tell us what that looked like. What were you thinking and how did you approach your team and say like, we can do this cheaper and faster?
My um, so I took that engineering experience I got at Universal Studios and I put it over the top of uh, construction business and applied um, higher level. I call it strategery. I love that Dana Carvey says that about one of the Bush presidents. I applied that strategery to an apparently simple business. Turns out that concrete's pretty complicated and building things are pretty complicated and earthwork's pretty complicated. But we don't look at the budget when we bid a job. We say, and you picked up on this for some reason the very first time you ever said anything to me, you said, you looked at how much it was going to cost, put a profit on it, and turned your bid in. That's what we do. We looked at what it took to build. Honestly, we looked at the mistakes in the drawings and thought, okay, well, we're going to have to fix this and we'll fix it like this. We didn't think there's all these mistakes in the drawings. And so we're going to stick it to them. We thought these are the mistakes. This is what we're going to have to deal with. And this is how we would propose to fix that. And your team was amenable to that. And so using, sound engineering principles and a really good team, we did not go out and get a bunch of bids. We did all the concrete work. We did about half the work. The grader did about 40% of the work. And then there was one other sub for the control systems, which wasn't a very big part, and the storm drain, which wasn't a very big part. And we went and picked the grader. And I went to him and said, we're going to do this. And we're not going to have any change orders. And we're not going to mess around with the schedule. We're going to go faster than you've ever gone. And he was like, deal. And we shook hands and we worked for about a month together, coming up with, okay, you do this, I'll do this kind of a thing. And when we put all the pieces together and put the profit on it, then we looked at the estimate and my team said, we're too low from the estimate. And I said, well, is it right? And they looked at it again and they said, yeah. I said, then let's go. I trust my folks just like you got to trust me.
And then I had my folks check it too. And it turned out to be real because I think what happened, from my perspective, is that probably the other bidders looked at the engineer's estimate and started deducting, well, where can I take a little bit off here to try to come in the lowest? But you guys looked at it like, what are we trying to build? And how much can we build that for? And then add on your profit, and that's the bid. And so it was just from my experience, it seemed like a totally different way of approaching the project that really, I mean, it saved us a lot of money. And I've told you this to, many times, like, I want to be fair. I want to be reasonable. I want to build great projects, but I also want to do right by the people that I serve.
Right.
And so, spending 20 extra million dollars when I didn't need to was just not something that makes sense to me. So
Right.
I was so happy when you came in, lower, because then that means that's $20 million more that I have for another project in the future. And then we can just keep serving the public, the water projects.
In this particular instance, I spend a lot of time in two places. I spend a lot of time at the beach down in Orange County, and I spend a lot of time in the mountains. And when I'm down at the beach, I go to the Santa Ana River and I watch all that water pour into the ocean. And now I go up to Lake Arrowhead and I sit on the ridge and I can see our project from there. And I can see that we're capturing that water, putting it in the ground so people can drink it.
That is an
that's
amazing
pretty cool,
view.
Right? That's pretty cool,
Yeah.
right?
That is really awesome.
Yeah, the thing about it is that it's a bigger risk for me, right? Understand I'm the contractor. I basically bet my house that everything's going to go fine. You know, they'll take
Mhm.
my house if I
Yeah.
screw up.
Mhm.
Never happened. But um, I thought that the risk was worth it for my folks. We feed about 350 people when you count the wives and the kids. And I thought the risk was worth it for a nice, cool project to kind of go off into the sunset. And I thought the risk was worth it for the people that I grew up with, right? I grew up here, right?
And a lot of your team was local. So let's talk about your team. So it's okay for, I can imagine you're sitting there talking it over with your, let's say, immediate family, like, oh, should we do this? But then you have to go out and you have to convince your subs, we're going to do this without change orders. We're going to move faster than you've ever moved before. How did you convince them to buy into this totally different model of building a project?
I don't know. Maybe it's just arrogance. I don't really know. You're right. Talking to uh, the key subs was like, well, it's going to be $50 to do this. Yeah, we're not doing that because that's how it started, right? Because that's what we know. And and all of a sudden he was like, an epiphany came over him, like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna I'm gonna really, you know, do a great job for these people, and I'm gonna make money. And so then it just switched, and then all of a sudden it was simple. You know, a job like this would have uh, 4 full-size trailers on it with people and computers and writing you letters telling you owe us money, and we didn't do that. We did it with 4 people. We didn't make a schedule. We we put the plan up on a wall and we started watching and just looking at it. Um, my team and your team, and we sat around a table for about 2 weeks, and we'd go to breakfast and we'd watch and we'd think and we'd talk, and we realized that the way that the engineers had designed the schedule was backwards. They had us starting at the farthest spot, at the lowest spot. That's the spot that would get water last. If we flopped it, and we literally flopped it, and we started at the top, then we could put water in first. And so then we could, within a matter of months, start using, I don't know, I think there was 8 of the 20 some basins that we started using ahead of time.
Which was a huge deal for us because we happened to have 2 wet winters while you were under construction, which that right there would have been a very reasonable story for you to say, this isn't going according to our plan. We need to charge you more money. We have stop work, etc. But you really stepped up and said, we can construct this and start putting water in the ground during the project period. And we don't have to wait to be 100% done, which again makes some engineers a little uncomfortable.
Well, and
Um,
it's a huge risk for me, right? Because now we're into the whole when are you complete, and now we're using this, and uh, so Heather, you took this. This is yours now. If it's broken, it's broken. Well, we didn't do any of that, right? We just tried to make everything be positive, right? If everything is positive, what's the negative, right? Well, this doesn't work. Okay, how are we going to fix it? I mean, there was, um, it's probably not suitable for a public podcast. There was a huge mistake. The, the channel that we built to supply the water into these basins was at the wrong elevation. The water would have flowed out of the basins into the channel instead of from the channel and into the basins. Nah, it's a $6-7 million change order. I mean, it just is.
because our designs were incorrect.
That's the polite way to say it. Yes.
Yes. So then you all realize this. And oh, before you go on though, I just want to comment on you guys sitting around this room looking at the designs, thinking a little, talking it over. I was listening to something recently that talked about some of our most challenging scientific problems have been solved by getting really smart people in a room and just letting them sit there and think
What
and
if?
then talk a little and then start thinking again.
What if?
Yeah.
What if? What if? We can't do that because I believe you solve the because. Your team believes you solve the because. We did that. What if this happens? Hmm. Well, this might happen. This might happen. This might happen. Okay. Should we adjust it a little bit? Yeah. Okay. I mean, it truly is from my engineering background perspective, how it's supposed to be. And I think that's probably how it was 100 years ago. People just kind of tried to work it out. Um, that that is just what we did. We met every day and we talked it through. And we talked about what we were working on and what we weren't working on, and what the problem was that we figured out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon the day before, and we fixed it. And so back to this idea, right? So it's a huge change, but I know, and your guy knows a lot about the way the computers work in the tractors. And so literally, you could sit in the bulldozer and dial the dial and raise the bottom of the channel and grade it. It didn't cost anything.
At the correct elevation.
At the correct elevation.
Yeah.
It didn't cost anything.
Yeah.
What would that have been a huge problem? Yeah. Your engineers would have been worried and tried to cover themselves. My grading contractor would have come at us hard for you've changed the whole thing. I have to redo the whole thing, and it's the sky's falling and da 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 da. That was like, I don't know, a Tuesday. I'm making the day up. That was a Tuesday, and on Thursday we made the dial, and they went back to work.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing, and everybody was kind of like, dodged another bullet.
So this is the thing that's so interesting that I'm really hoping we can identify here, because I mean, you could have made $6 million extra dollars, or, $2 million extra plus your extra costs or whatever. But it's the mindset that everyone on the team was able to sit there and just say, we're going to solve this together. Because, as the owner, we often come into a situation highly defensive and think, oh, the contractor's out to get us. They just want to have as many change orders as possible so they can make more money. You're probably thinking, oh, the owner's going to put all the risk and responsibility on me. But it was just such a different mindset that when you do encounter that kind of problem, like, it has to be true and valid in order to survive that kind of situation, right? Like, you have to really be in it for the long-term commitment to the project and the team.
Right.
Otherwise, that whole premise falls apart, right? When $6 million is on the line.
I'll tell you, I'm not comfortable saying it out loud. This is the first time I've ever said it out loud. I've told it to you privately before, and we worked it out at the time, but it's not done, and I don't know why it's not done.
So yeah, I was going to ask, why isn't it done? What is the thing? Because again, we have probably $50 billion worth of water projects that we need to build in probably even just Southern California, but let's just say California.
Yeah.
How are we going to build the infrastructure that the future needs, that my kids and grandkids and your grandkids need for the future in order to be sustainable and reliable in our water supply? How do we get that without this shift to the mindset that you're talking about? Because the old model doesn't work. We've seen that the old model keeps us stagnant and talking and planning and designing and permitting projects for way, way too long. How do we get the mindset to change so that we can build projects in a way that makes sense and serves the public?
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about the inertia of the systems that we've created, and that it's almost like you have to kind of tear up the playbook and start to think again about how to do this. You see it in the private sector now where they hire a contractor early. We used to hire the contractor at Universal way early, and he would sit in the meetings with us and help us uh, make things that are uh, simpler,
Buildable,
buildable. Yeah,
formidable.
yeah, formidable, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, um, if you look at the design as one of its major functions is just to get you a permit, well, then the whole thing about actual constructability kind of falls to the wayside, right? Because I got to get this permit. Because how long did it take you? It took you forever, right, to get a permit compared to how the time we actually built it in. And I say you weren't here, but
My predecessors.
but that mindset of there's no collaboration, and design build was supposed to be that, but of course it got hijacked by this he said she said kind of mentality. And I don't know if it's we have to change the incentives, right? The incentive can't be I can't play liquidated damages, and I can't be on the hook for some goofy thing that an architect did or an engineer did. And from the owner's perspective, you have to change the incentives also, right? The guy's out to get me, so how do I protect myself? We have to figure out a way to create that level of trust. And I think, you know, maybe starting from earlier in the process with your builder, right? And your builder and your designer and your team working together from the start, sitting in that room, staring at the plans, staring at the picture, right? Because I mean, it's just not that hard.
We make it so hard.
We make it so hard, right?
So let's go to the team then. So this, I think, is you talk about trust, and I really believe in the value of trust and trustworthiness. And so this was a pretty big team in terms of all of your crew, your subcontractors, our team. We have people from very different points of view and expertises. So first off, we had huge environmental challenges, as you know, just because this is in the alluvial fan, which is occupied by many endangered species. And, we as an agency are committed to doing right by the environment, but also complying with our permits and the laws. We don't cut corners there. So we saw this, normally that would be a huge point of conflict. And we went through a bunch of different challenges, which, every one of them could have been like, oh, those people, um, those biologists, they just want to stop the project, or those contractors, they just don't care what they kill, or whatever. You can tell yourself stories about who is sitting across the table from you. But in the end, we all had to work together. And so I feel like even by the end, there was a bond of, as one of our leadership coaches, shared physical and mental suffering. Maybe that's what created the bond in some of these circumstances. But, where the biologists were working very collaboratively with the grading team and vice versa, and being able to avoid areas that were occupied by nesting birds, for instance, we could move to a whole different part of the site and be able to keep working while also, protecting those resources. And so that right there was one of the things that usually kind of gets projects. And then you're shut down for 6 months while you wait for XYZ species to move out of the area. But we never let that stop us. And then to take that on even further to the other types of relationships that were developed through this team. And I think that is all focused on trust in each other, that we're all here for the project.
Yeah.
And success, my success is your success,
Right.
and
Right.
vice versa.
I don't need to be taller by climbing on your back, right? Whenever something goes awry, whenever something goes wrong, I always think, okay, what's the opportunity here? What else can we do? We were all set. We flipped our sequencing, and we were going to start over there on those basins that we'd be able to put water in faster. And there was a brand new bird. And oh, sky's falling, sky's falling,
Those pesky birds,
sky's falling.
they
And
always
so
move in when you
we
don't want them.
we go out and we trudge around and we figure out where it is, and it's we've got it mapped, and we're using our fancy technology. And uh, your guy and I, we look at each other, and I'm like, well, let's just start right over there, right outside the limit. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. Okay. And he went and talked to the folks about it to make sure. And I went and talked to the grader and said, please move over here. And we started.
Yeah.
And that happened a number of times. And we just kept, being flexible. We called an audible for the football fans, right? We just said, okay, so that didn't work. The run play didn't work. Let's throw the ball deep. And, we just kept doing that. And we did it every day. We didn't run the project from a computer screen. We ran the project from standing in the dirt and looking at, okay, that's not working. Let's try this. How's that? And from a technical standpoint, that made it go really fast. I think we were supposed to put water in your basins in 30 months, and we did the first basins in 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just that trust of, I know it's going to be okay, and they know it's going to be okay. Did we ever shuck and jive I call them the floppy hats. Did we ever shuck and jive the floppy hats? No. Hey, there's something over here. Come check it out. And so we work together as a team, so that if you're working as a team, then I don't go off and start something, and then somebody comes along and says, what are you doing this for? And now I have to stop and I have to switch. Well, that costs me money, right? But if we work as a team, hey, I want to go here in 3 days. Okay, let me go look at it. Come back 4 hours later. Hey, did you look? Was it cool? Is everything fine? That's all it takes. Done.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have any shutdowns like that. We had some delays on stuff, but we figured out a way around them and stuff like that. So we might have a delay over here in this place, but didn't hurt that it was huge, so we could move around.
Yeah, it's a huge project site, so that did help. But still, like every time you have to move to a different site, you could be like different part of the site. You could, oh, I got to charge you for that because we have to shut down the equipment and move it or whatever.
Some of those massive pieces of equipment would take 4 hours to move.
Yeah.
Right. So we had to be careful, but we were just trying to play ahead of it. Yeah.
So you didn't know me before we started on this. You knew some of our staff. I didn't know you until my big meeting. My big trust building team meeting. I called everyone into the office, all the subs, all the project partners. And by the way, so I'm not the only one paying for this, right? So I have a couple project partners who are counting on us.
Couple of dozen?
Counting on us to get this project built with partly their money.
Now, somebody might watch this video, so don't tell the whole story because you'll make me cry.
I know. I was going to say, so I call you all in to the meeting, and I did not play, tear-inducing music, but maybe in the background you were thinking this, because I basically say to everyone that this bid is low. Lots of people are saying that it's not a good bid, that you have a plan to just give us a bunch of change orders and make up the money, and that, many people are doubtful that we can pull this off, and that I am counting on all of you to have my back, and I'm going to have your back.
And we shook hands.
And everyone cheered, and you might have gotten a little bit of a glisten of a tear in your eye.
I did. You made me cry. That's the fact. And nobody had ever said that to me before. I found somebody. There had to have been another one in the universe.
So we made a commitment to each other and to the whole team that we were going to get this done together, and that we were never going to turn on each other and, use the other parties as a reason that we couldn't succeed, and that we were just going to work it out every single day.
Right.
And I'm just guessing, but I don't think this is like the normal engineering project start meeting.
Nope.
And so it kind of, I'm a biologist, so I'm very comfortable with adaptive management on a daily, hourly basis. But I haven't met a lot of engineers that are comfortable with that mindset of like, yeah, we might have to change our plan today or tomorrow and the next day. So what do you think? Well, first of all, what did you think about that meeting? When you left here, what were you thinking?
I thought, wow, there's somebody else I found that has this crazy sort of attitude. Yeah. I don't, it was like, oh, this is going to work. No. It happens once in a while. It really does. Um, I've had some school district folks that have that attitude. It was really, really like inspiring. I was like, okay, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, like we found
Yeah.
true partners.
Yeah.
I felt that's how I felt that day.
Yeah.
Okay, whew, I can sleep tonight.
Right.
They get it. We all have our names on the line here,
Yeah.
and we're not going to let each other down,
Yeah.
which was, a good place to start that project in because, you know, I don't think I'd ever spent $51 million as the general manager yet
And
of the public's money.
and I had known some of your staff. I don't know. Must have been 20 years before, so I knew that they had that sort of ethics. And I thought, well, if they worked here this long, it must be his ethics too. And that turned out to be true.
Yeah. What drives you, Mark?
Thinking, figuring out the big idea.
Have you ever done one of those experiences where you figure out your why? Do you know what your why is?
Need a why. Yeah. I just figured out in the last 4 or 5 years that I'm here to tell people these kind of stories, just like this. Yeah, I can't stand it. I've been nervous all morning. Uh, I I do it at my church. Same thing. I'm going through and teaching them how to make a standard operating procedure on how to write a check. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That's yeah. This is my why is I'm Yoda now. And so I'm going to say something weird, and you're going to go away and try and figure out what it was I meant.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. My that's my fundamental why of what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But my real why is my wife. I really like hanging out with my wife. Uh, we've been at it a long time.
Yeah, your wife I've met her and she's amazing. I can see that.
Yeah, so that's really fun.
And you have a family business, right? So it seems like there's lots of Bogues around that are somehow involved in these things, and you guys are local. And one thing we really loved about this project was that a lot of the contractors' staff lives in our area, and they got to come to work every day and know that they were building a project that was going to have benefits for future generations of their family.
From Yucaipa out to Cal State and into Corona, there's 120 of us at Bogue, and about 50, 60 of them are right here in right here, tight into San Bernardino Valley. Born and raised here, kind of folks. Second generations. My dad got the first generation through the amnesty program that Reagan set up, and now, like for instance, my vice president of engineering is the son of one of those original guys. And the original guy's still there. He worked on this project.
Mm.
He he lives here in town, so they're they're extremely proud of these big hole in the grounds that put water in the ground. After I explained it to them,
They are beautiful when you come down from the mountains and you see it, or if you fly in, you can see them, and it's just extraordinary how big they are. Like you don't realize
Yeah,
how large these facilities are until you actually see them at scale. And to think that all of the people that worked on it, you were seeing kind of that day's work, and you're so focused on that channel or the basin or all the different facilities. But then when you take a step back and you realize how much water we can put in the ground. And because I'm an endangered species biologist, I also like to shout out, I really believe that the endangered species of the Santa Ana River, alluvial fan, will be better off because of our project than they would have been without it, because they needed that habitat reset. Yes, it's in the form of bulldozers, which, most of the regulatory agencies don't love bulldozers, but we can do projects that will enhance the environment, even if they use engineering, because, if we're being honest with ourselves, a lot of these natural hydrologic processes are never coming back. All right. We have a dam.
Right.
The Santa Ana River is never going to flood bank to bank again.
Right.
So we have to think creatively in how can we achieve that goal? Like you said earlier, what is it that we're trying to solve for and figuring out how can you do that in a different way, maybe than has ever been thought of before. But you have the end result of we're going to have a healthier ecosystem out there than we would have without this project, which I think is the epitome of the win-win that we're always looking for. And that's a great use of the resources that we have and the people that we have working on these projects. It's very satisfying to think that you can achieve multiple goals with one project.
Remember, when I was a kid, you're younger than me. When I was a kid, and the movie would be, the guy on the camel in the desert, and he comes to the oasis. If you go out there and you sit quietly, it's an oasis in the middle of the desert out there. There's birds and snakes. There's lots of snakes. And
That sounds just like the oasis that we all want to be in.
yeah, right, right. Snakes, I forgot about them. And but it's peaceful, and it's creating, like, you guys would say, habitat. The bulldozer concrete guy, he thinks that's a parking lot, but it's an interesting thing that it's been created that doesn't exist around here anymore. My grandfather told me that where we're sitting in hospitality in San Bernardino, which is right at the 10 and the 215, used to be a swamp. When he was first here in the 40s, it was a swamp. And it's all gone. The desert has reclaimed the space, and we put a little bit of it back, right?
Yeah, that is true.
That's pretty fun.
We're putting a lot of water in the ground. So I will tell you, my why is complex problem solving in order to change the world. I did an exercise that we figured that out during graduate school, but so again, what drives you?
Now, what drives me?
You don't need to be driven at this point in your career in your life, right? You're doing it for something greater than
Right.
that.
Right. I'm trying to pass it on. My first boss was this mentor to me. He was super smart, and he died early. He got Parkinson's and died early, but he was always telling us and teaching us and showing us. And so now I'm trying to pass that on to whoever I can talk into listening.
That's awesome. Okay, last question. Our podcast is called Watershed Moments. So what is a watershed moment in your life or career that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I'm a senior at the University of Redlands. I was not a good student. I was really good at consuming beverages underage. And we were seniors, and I had buffaloed our way into the honor room, me and my four buddies. And it was this big, huge suite, but we had to come up with a plan, what our charity was going to be, so that we could, be worthy of the honor room. And you couldn't say we were, going to return our kegs for. So we come up with a blood drive, and Graham invites this little girl to the blood drive. And so she starts hanging around. And she's a freshman, and I'm a senior, and she has Dr. Svensson, who's still there at the University of Redlands, and he was pretty tough. And so I put her in my little Nissan, and we drove to Stater Brothers, and I bought a block of cheese, cheddar cheese, a knife, we didn't have a knife, and chips, and 3x5 flashcards. And I showed her how to make flashcards and study for a test. And we were married in 1991. We're still married.
Oh, well, Bridget is an amazing lady. Been married to you for a long time. I'm not saying
Poor
that's
girl.
why she's amazing, but she is amazing.
It might be.
Lovely family. So I can see why you would say that's a watershed moment. That was a
Watershed moment.
That was a really good meet cute, as they say. So well done, Mark.
Well, thanks.
And thank you for your service to our agency and
Thanks
the public that we serve.
Thanks for the chance.
Oh,
Thanks for the chance.
So glad to have had this experience. It's like one of those, hopefully not once in a career. I think that's the point, right? Is like we both want to inspire change.
Spread the word, right?
Yeah, like we can all do better. We can all have a different mindset. We can all look at our partner across the table and extend trust and
don't be afraid.
Exactly. Like have courage to be different.
Yeah.
So
We're going to make a mistake. And you know what we'll do? We'll make a new decision.
we'll figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mark.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks everyone for listening in to San Bernardino Valley Presents Watershed Moments. It was a great conversation with Mark Bogh about changing our mindset in order to build major water infrastructure projects faster, cheaper, in service of our public. If you liked what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. And always remember that really hard does not equal impossible.